Having looked at the distinction between leases and licenses, in this video we're going to now move on to talk exclusively about leases and their content requirements. As academic lawyers, we need to be able to both categorise rights over land and to ascertain the effect of such rights on a disponee of land. For example, if Claire has granted various rights over Blackacre, we need to be able to work out what those rights are and whether they bind a disponee of Blackacre, a purchaser of the freehold estate from Claire. And so we looked at this more generally in the video on registered land, on our videos on registered land, and we're going to look at the specifics of how leases can bind a disponee of land throughout this module, throughout this section on leases. But today, really what I want to be doing is looking at right categorization. Specifically, I want to be looking at I want to establish the content which a right must possess if it is to fall within the law's template for a lease. So this is going to be a multi-part process, and we're going to begin by looking at the leasehold content requirements and specifically about exclusive possession and multiple occupancy and the four unities. And then this will continue into part 2 at least. So the content requirements. The lease content requirements. So we've got Street and Mountford. The House of Lords and Street and Mountford held that an occupation agreement amounts to a lease if and only if it satisfies 3 content requirements. So there are 3 content requirements. It confers exclusive possession of land in return for rent and or a lump sum payment, a premium, and for a certain term. So this is the orthodox statement of the lease content requirement, which is still the leading authority in leases. A lease that does not fulfill these requirements cannot be a lease. What is determinative is not what the parties think they created or what they label the right they have created. What is determinative is what the substance of the right amounts to. And we saw that in the previous video. We really jumped into this whole idea of what is a lease, what is a license, and we saw that it's not so much what you've written down, it's really what the substance of the agreement is that defines whether you have a lease or a license. Okay, so the first content requirement is that it must confer exclusive possession of the land. Okay, so exclusive possession. So exclusive possession is the right to occupied land to the exclusion of all others. Note the distinction between exclusive possession, which is a matter of legal right, and exclusive occupation, which is a matter of fact. So exclusive possession is a legal right where the occupant has the ability to exclude all others from the relevant property. It is important to distinguish exclusive possession from exclusive occupation, as an exclusive occupation is a matter of fact and not a legal right. They are independent concepts, and it is possible to have one without the other. So for example, let's say Claire confers on you the legal right to occupy Blackacre Barn, and she grants you the legal right to occupy to the exclusion of all others. On the basis of this right, you have exclusive possession and you are on your way to being a tenant of the barn, subject to the other 2 content requirements we just saw. But the mere fact that you have the right to exclude all others does not mean that you will necessarily do that in practice. In other words, you could constantly have people staying over at your barn and you may never be alone. But this is not the important thing. What is important is the legal rights that you have, not whether you have exclusive occupation as a matter of fact. On the other hand, Claire might grant you the right to occupy Blackacre, the barn of Blackacre, but she may in the documentation reserve a right for herself to occupy the barn alongside you in the future. If this happens, you do not have exclusive possession because she has not conferred on you a right to occupy at the exclusion of all others. She has reserved for herself a right to occupy alongside you in the future. But it could be you have exclusive possession of the barn, and Claire may never take advantage of her legal right to come and occupy alongside you. So it doesn't actually matter whether she does or doesn't. Okay? So don't confuse these two concepts of exclusive possession and exclusive occupation. We are looking at the nature of the right granted under the relevant paperwork. Okay? So in what circumstances will an agreement fail to confer the legal right to exclusive possession? What kind of clauses could be contained in an occupation agreement that would mean that the grantee of the right has not been given exclusive possession? And here are a few examples. So when occupation is conferred on multiple people, and so this is really what I'm going to be looking at in this video, and I'm going to look at the other two in a later video, plus the other content requirements for a lease, because this can go on for quite some time. I've just split it up into a 2 or 3 part video series. Okay, so we got when occupation is conferred on multiple people, so that's multiple occupancy, and except for joint tenants, and that's what we're going to also be looking at as well, which I'll see in later slides. We've also got when the agreement gives the grantor or third party the right to enter into occupation alongside the occupant, and when the agreement gives the grantor extensive access for the purpose of cleaning or repairs. So you won't have exclusive possession, you won't fulfill the first content requirement of having a lease if any of these things happen, okay? And the first of these is multiple occupancy, okay? And that's what we're going to be looking at right now, multiple occupancy. So the problems that multiple occupancy poses for exclusive possession. Self-evidently, there can only be one right exclusively to possess a given piece of property. So it appears that if a number of people are given the right to occupy the same piece of property, none of them have exclusive possession of it. So we've said that exclusive possession is the legal right to exclude all others from the land, okay? And if you are giving that right to multiple people, then they can't all have that exclusive right to exclude all others, if that makes sense. So for example, Claire gives Bill and Ben the right to occupy Blackacre Barn alongside each other. It appears that Bill does not have exclusive possession, as he does not have the right to occupy to the exclusion of all others, because Ben is there. Prima facie, it appears that that when more than one person is given a right to occupy a piece of land, there can be no exclusive possession. But then think about multiple occupants as joint tenants. So there is one way in which multiple occupancy can amount to exclusive possession, and that if we can construe them as joint tenants. Be careful here, as here joint tenants has nothing to do with the lease. A joint tenancy is a type of co-ownership of property. More precisely, it is a type of co-ownership of property under which the co-owners are viewed as a single indivisible unit, and it is this unit that owns the property. So multiple occupants can co-own a single right to exclusive possession, provided they are the joint tenants of that right. And multiple occupants are joint tenants if they satisfy the 4 unities. So there are 4 legal requirements that need to be satisfied in order for you to conclude multiple occupants are joint tenants, and they are as follows. So here are the 4 unities. We've got unity of possession. The occupants must possess rights over the same piece of land, piece of property. Unity of time. The occupants' rights must have arisen at the same time. Unity of title. The occupants' rights must have arisen from the same transaction. What is essential here is the existence of a single agreement between the grant of the right on the one hand and the multiple occupants on the other hand. This is not negated if co-owners are given individual copies of a single agreement. So you may, for instance, have a house with your at university with your housemates, for example, and you could be joint tenants of a certain property, and no doubt you were given individual copies of that single agreement. That doesn't negate the fact that you are joint tenants. And then the final thing is unity of interest. The occupants must share a single set of legal rights and obligations. Most notably, they must be jointly liable for rent. So there is joint rent liability if the landlord has the ability to call on any one of the occupants for the full amount of rent. This is in contrast to saying that each occupant is proportionally liable for their own portion of rent. So if occupants satisfy these four unities, then they are joint tenants and we can view them as one unit. And in their capacity as joint tenants, they can hold a single right of exclusive possession of land. So let's look at an example now from Blackacre. Claire is the registered proprietor of the registered freehold estate in Blackacre. On the 5th of March this year, she entered into an agreement with Bill and Ben, granting them an immediate right to occupy Blackacre Barn. Clause 1 of the agreement stipulates that each tenant is liable for the monthly rent of £1,000. Do Bill and Ben have exclusive possession of Blackacre Barn? Now, the only way for multiple occupants, such as Bill and Ben, to have exclusive possession of Blackacre Barn is if they are joint tenants of the single right to exclusive possession. We know Bill and Ben will be joint tenants if they satisfy the four unities. On the facts of this example, the four unities seem to be satisfied, and therefore we can conclude they are joint tenants and have exclusive possession of Blackacre Barn. So this is one of the three requirements of having a lease, okay? And we fulfilled that requirement. They have exclusive possession. And that's really what we've been looking at in this video, the whole concept of whether or not you have exclusive possession. Let's look at another example. So we've got one here again from Blackacre. Claire is the registered proprietor of the registered freehold estate in Blackacre. On the 5th of March this year, she entered into separate agreements with Bill and Ben, giving each an immediate right to occupy Blackacre Barn alongside the other. Clause 1 of Bill's agreement stipulates that his monthly rent is £500. An identical provision is contained in Ben's agreement. Do Bill and Ben have exclusive possession of Blackacre's barn? The first problem is the separate agreements. They need to have had a unity of title. So here we do not have unity of title due to two separate agreements. And the second problem here is unity of interest. There is no liability for the rent as each occupant is paying their own rent. So you can see how that quickly failed on two grounds when we look at the four unities. So ultimately there is no joint tenancy and therefore there is no exclusive possession. Okay, so this video really sums up everything to do with the first section of the first content requirement. So we know that there are three content requirements for a lease. It confers exclusive possession of land in return for rent and or some lump sum payment and for a certain term. And in this video we looked at the beginning parts of what it means to have exclusive possession and specifically multiple occupancy. But we know that there are other key circumstances in which an agreement will fail to confer the legal right to exclusive possession, and we're going to look at the other two of those aspects in the next video, and that is when the agreement gives the grantor, a third party, the right to enter into occupation alongside the occupant, and when the agreement gives the grantor extensive access for the purpose of cleaning and repairs, etc. So if you have any questions about this video, please leave a comment below and I'll get straight back to you. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching.